is to make sure that we operationalize these MOUs, because that is also one of the issues delegated to the DPP. We are also engaging Justice Department, where we are then using or as well prioritizing magistrates offices which are in the far-flung areas, so that at least once or twice a week we can utilize. We started the process in Northern Cape, Kuruman, but then we had challenges with Public Works because they also wanted to analyze the number of staff of justice before we can then also be part of that. But that process is on course. And the staff inputs, yes, we've consulted with the unions, and I think the acting CEO, I think Honorable Ngola was also asking what inputs the unions gave. Honorable Ngola, the CEO will answer this particular issue because they engaged in the bargaining process with the unions. And then are we for IR ready, fourth industrial revolution ready? Yes, we are getting there, Honorable Mufukeng, because we have now started, especially with the COVID-19, the lockdown. We are using one system called WebEx, especially for our meetings, but also we are at an advanced stage of implementing our case management system, but we are also developing in our APP. We said we will develop an application, an app, where members of the public, instead of approaching the public protector, that application of the public protector will have information. If you complain about Department of Justice, firstly lodge your complaint with this complaint section of justice, and then if they are not responsive, escalate to us. So issues like those we're working on, and as well procuring more laptops for all our investigative staff so that they can also be able to work from home, especially with the challenges of COVID-19. Honorable Horn, the issue of the DPP post and the line of authority. That's why both the Chief of Staff and the Senior Manager support, who's responsible for all our financial administration support, assist both offices. It's not a question that possibly there's that disintegration, but also the issue of the CEO, because any decision we are taking, anything from the CEO passes through the DPP before it comes to the public protector. So there is that line of authority, and the DPP is working very closely, especially on issues of complaints and stakeholder management, on issues of administrative justice complaints, but also advising on how can we maximize the utilization of the staff, issues of employee wellness, issues of how our presentations to National Treasury and the Department of Justice. And also the DPP will then also need a lot of support from administration on when we engage at our forum for institutions supporting democracy, or as well engaging your force, especially FOSAT, because that's where we will also have regular update to them on the reports we've issued and on the investigations we are conducting where we have a delay to respond by the various accounting officers. And then on the issue of the DPSA assistance, as I indicated to Honorable Mufukeng, that it was not a drastic overhaul of the whole structure. It's still the existing structure, but then it's improvements on few positions, and also on eliminating unnecessary positions, because as you'd see, Model 6 had 707 positions, but then it was more of your also admin assistant positions, and you'll find core being the positions in core and admin support being almost the same. So on this one, we've reduced all those positions so that we can focus on core, but also focus on how we can be efficient in our core mandate. And the engagement was that when we started the process, a letter was written to the Minister of DPSA, and we requested their assistance, and then they allocated a team which was led by their DG and some DDGs who were responsible for organizational structure, for job profiling, and I think the other one was, job profiling, so that they can look into our structure holistically and advise. But I think there were challenges which we were experiencing because the public protector is not operating like a public service, but and they could also be able to suit the structure to our needs. And then the issue of transfer of knowledge, okay, the section 311A, table within 14 days. We will, I think acting CEO just check with Niels whether the document we presented to the speaker, the way it was detailed, was it including the remuneration details? And if not, then we will have to make sure that we submit that particular document. But I remember signing a document which was detailing the remuneration in all the structures of our organogram. And if not, when can we expect that? The document is readily available, so we can avail it soon. And the Minister of Finance not objecting or to the structure within allocated baseline. I think that Honorable Ngola also asked. Definitely, we will stay within our baseline, our budget. And this presentation, Honorable Horn and Honorable members, it was to bring the portfolio committee, and as well, you remember we've been saying we need additional funding, and how can we perform our mandate effectively and efficiently, but also to bring members of the portfolio committee into the challenges we are facing. And in case you have that opportunity to argue or to also assist in advocating for additional funding, I'm not referring to now, that's what we are asking for, but we are showing the members of the portfolio committee the comprehensive and complete picture that if we can fund those positions of core, and this is how much we can be able to or we will be requiring, but also that will improve the efficiency of the institution. In no way that we are changing or we need additional funding, but we've been saying this, and we're just showing you the complete picture. And the budget cuts, I'll ask the acting CEO to answer to that, whether the 17% budget cut has been effected or what was the response, because we've made a presentation and there was support from the Department of Justice. And I think the other issue was the legal unit. The legal unit has been working, Honorable Horn and honorable members, and not only on litigation, but was also advising on some of the reports which we've issued, because they will then check whether those reports are review proof and whether all compliance to the legal prescripts have been adhered to. But I must indicate, Honorable Horn, that we have several matters we are defending internally, because currently the post has been vacated of a senior manager, but we do have a legal advisor at the level of a manager, which is deputy director level, who has appeared on behalf of the public protector, because that's one process we are trying to use and save on costs, because remember, the public protector, we cannot utilize the state attorney because the state attorney already is utilized by various government departments. But this official has appeared several times on behalf of the institution and has drafted documents which, in fact, affidavits, which have been before court, and it's progressing well. And I think if you can have more officials in that section who can do that, we can save a lot on attorneys, especially, though it's still a process and it's still work in progress. And they do provide legal opinion, and they do check the reports, especially where there is a legal a problem or legal question. And Honorable Janki, the presentation to the committee and this particular structure, what we would want to achieve or the outcome and the impact. I think firstly, we've indicated that we have removed the post of assistant investigators, because the assistant investigators, they need a lot of hand-holding from the investigators or senior investigators. Therefore, if we have more investigators and senior investigators, they are independent, they can conduct investigations, they will be able to be more efficient, and we will be able to finalize more cases. Again, having more investigators in the public protector structure is because 95% of our work is more of your service delivery or service failure kind of investigations. And I think this particular structure will then encourage us to have a lot of investigative staff who will be able to finalize those administrative justice matters. And the issue of having, and I think besides on core, on support structure, it will also then assist us, especially on internal audit, as the acting CEO has indicated, risk management, we will capacitate, and then on legal services, as I've indicated, that if we have an in-house team which will be able to advise more or give more legal opinion on our reports, and also do a lot of internal or defend or oppose matters internally vis-a-vis external attorneys. And the COO position, Honorable Janki, is because the CEO currently has your CFO, and the corporate services position is also not funded, but there is somebody acting in that particular position, where you'll find that all your HR, your ICT, your risk, and everyone is reporting to. Therefore, if you will have the CEO having to make sure as well that they oversee the performance and efficiency of the executive managers, which are at the chief director level, of complaints and stakeholder management, of PII coastal. PII is a provincial integration and investigation, and provincial investigation coastal, and the EM for investigations. Therefore, I think that structure is too, or the number of the people who will be reporting directly to CEO, and CEO to make sure that the work which is submitted to her is also properly checked and is quality work. It will be too much for the CEO to check both quality of our reports, quality of our yes, especially APP, your strategy, but also for the CEO to go through each and every report. And this CEO will be the leader of your internal structure, where all reports will be dealt with, where there will be then a peer review mechanism, where they are checking a workload or core of the institution. And the issue is myself and DPP, because we are not like as executive authority, we cannot be holding the EMs or the executive managers to account when it comes to performance management, when it comes to disciplining when they are not performing. Whereas the COO will make sure that that process of investigation and core, the statistics, the quality of work, so that we don't also have audit findings as far as core is concerned, especially on performance management. So hence we would want to still keep it, but we'll hear as well from members of the honorable members. The issue of the investigations, we tried, or the ratio, to show the committee also, just to empower you and show that our investigators are heavily, or they have a lot of work in their hands. Again, coming to the committee and your assistance, because it means we still do a lot of work for the public servants, and that is also creating a lot of workload for our officials, and it leads to low staff morale, stress, sometimes a lot of investigators taking leave or sick leave because they cannot cope. So by showing this ratio, we are just showing that other ombudsman internationally, this is the current workload, 10 to 25. And we would want, as the public protector, to be at that, to reach that particular level. We are working towards that. Hence, the issue of changing the way we are operating within complaints and stakeholder management, that from now on, especially pillar number 7, drive the process of institutions to have their own complaints mechanisms, engage more with foresight to make sure that a lot of the work and the departments resolve the complaints of the public. And as public protector, we deal only with systemic investigations, and we deal with complex matters, and we can be of service to government and advise accordingly. So we would want to move towards that. Hence, now we will be changing, promoting more of, like if we receive a complaint and we refer it to Justice Complaints Unit, and if Justice is failing to resolve, and in fact monitor that, if they fail to resolve, then we can be a complaints mechanism of second instance. And the issue of skills and capabilities, I hear you, Honorable Jankim, but remember, those expertise and the skills, we indicated the actuary, your engineers, where they need to analyze and advise. Maybe let's say it's a complaint against ESCOM and there is a lot of engineering information which we don't understand. For us to appoint those expertise internally, I think those people, it's not to say we receive a lot of complaints which requires possibly an engineer, or a lot of complaints which requires an actuary. Therefore, hence, we thought of having them under, as service providers, have a panel of those experts, but under our goods and services, we will have those people we can consult as and when to tap into. But I think, again, we will have to then check what skills must we have, especially when we recruit the senior investigators who are at the level of deputy director, not even DDG. And what expertise and the skills they have, possibly also changing the current caliber of our staff, especially on job profile. Do we need all investigators to be legally qualified? Possibly that's where you can also advise. Or we need certain investigators who are specializing they are not legally qualified, but they are procurement experts, for instance, because we also receive a lot of complaints on procurement irregularities, or as well irregular appointments. We receive a lot of complaints like those, whether we need experts who are human resource specialists. So I think that's a point taken. So our chief investigators are at the director level. You see, it's also a very low level, who are managing the senior investigators who are at the deputy director level. But I must say that they are at the occupational special dispensation. It's more than a deputy director salary. And the investigators are at the level of an assistant director in the public service. So, and we will do this within the baseline indeed. And we were just bringing the portfolio committee into our own space and just give you all the information so that you understand the internal nitty-gritties of the institution. And the reduction of 125 positions, we've said is assistant investigators. And as we are saying, we don't see the need of having assistant investigators. Instead, we'd want to have more investigators who will be independent, who will deal with the work expeditiously and agently. And the SAO positions and the cutting or the reduction of admin work, Honorable Truchen, it was because at an assistant admin, it's like a clerk, and they are not in a position to support the provincial rep who is at the director level. But at least if you appoint a manager, then they will be able to support the head of that office, a provincial manager, with the HR, with the finance, with procurement, at that level, leave and stuff like that. So these positions were at a very low level. So I think they are not making any difference for the institution. But where we are appointing, we will then also make sure, Honorable Ngola, that indeed our positions, we don't need experience, as the President has indicated. And also, we also making sure that we promote internal staff, because some of the positions from assistant, from investigator down, we advertise internally, and if we don't get, then we can go outside. So we do both, but if it's at the low level, we don't require experience. And no wellness program, and it's a challenge. We had an outsourced institution for this, but then due to financial constraints, their services were terminated. I think in the CEO will indicate, I think 2017-18 financial year, but it's what we are also still following up. And indeed, not having it has an impact. Hence, I'm saying the workload of our staff, low morale, because that also will need them to get that wellness and assistance internally. And what we've also done is that we've made it compulsory that each and every employee must have a medical aid, so that when they are having challenges in the meantime, they can also use their medical aids to request for professional assistance. The impact of COVID-19, and the CEO will speak on that. For now, we have not had, fortunately, any one of our staff impacted. And the issue of Honorable Ngola, the changes, we want to make sure that there's efficiency, as I indicated, more investigators, more focus on core, more focus on internal finalization of or resolution of disputes and or even litigation or legal issues, and have more capacity to also check the quality of our reports, whether they will stand the review process. And indeed, we can give the committee the composition of our staff, because we are making sure from HR that we comply to Employment Equity Act. We can give you that particular breakdown. And the issue of us going to court always, we've engaged with the Minister of Justice, and the process is on track, where we will also engage more with the Solicitor General, because we would want to move to a situation where if there is that issue of a conflict, instead of going to court, how can we resolve a lot of matters, which we are trying always internally, or settle the matters out of court. And also explain our reports, because sometimes we are taken to court because of not understanding that when we say submit a plan within 30 days, we are not saying implement within 30 days, but we are saying, can you tell us how you are going to do that? And also we sit down with you to show you that if you implement the report, these are the benefits and this is how it will change your administration. And the issue of the labor unions, we've consulted, and the Minister of Finance, we agree, yes, we'll operate within our baseline. Honorable Mangwanishe, I agree and take note of that. I think we will have to note that DPP and ACE, especially the capacitation of the private office, also how can we make sure that we do that. Unfortunately, Honorable Mangwanishe, in the 5th administration, we tried to get the advisor, and especially the advisor for the public protector, but that was not approved, and it was an issue which we couldn't win on it. And I think your advice and guidance on how we can best acquire that is appreciated. And the 17% cut, CEO and DPP, if you'd want to add, and CEO, maybe if you can just deal with those two.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, honorable members. I think the reality, Chair and honorable members, that we have to reflect upon is the legacy systematic issues since the inception of Public Protector South Africa. And I think hence we are struggling with the structure at this stage. I've been advised that this is indeed a compromise structure, mainly to address the issue of our budget, to ensure that we try by all means to be able to cut as much as we can, more than what its purpose should be because of our financial state. So we really would have, under ordinary circumstances, required expert intervention in developing our structure, looking at international standards, aligning it, of course, with our baseline as it is. However, this could not be done, and it hasn't been done, for an organization that has developed like ours. At this stage, this is really something that should be done so that we can be more effective and efficient, both in our performance, but as well as being cost effective. Chair, dealing with the issue of the capacitation of the private office, indeed, I think it is a concern. However, we do somehow understand the issue of maybe not having an advisor, because the PP and the DPP is required to be subject matter experts, hence we go through the interview process, etc. And I don't think the issue is much there. However, the private office does require capacity in terms of research, investigators, and I think hence we have held on to the position of the COO to assist us better with quality assurance and governance on core business, because the private office doesn't have that capacity. And without that capacity in the private office, and without us having a COO, it would really hamper on the quality of decision making that's being done by the executive authority even further. On the issue raised by Honorable Horn, I think, Honorable Horn, your concern might be out of the depiction of the DPP in respect of the structure itself. Maybe it could be depicted better, however, it is not a reflection of the operations as it is, with my experience currently with the work that we have undertaken as the two executive authorities, the DPP has been afforded sufficient authority in this position. Further, honorable members, you know, we are more than committed in the upliftment of young people and realizing the vision of the President of the Republic to ensure that young people are actually capacitated and taken in at entry level where they are not required to show any experience. However, with my experience at PPSA is that after taking them in at assistant investigation level, there is no career progression for them further within the institution because of our state in the institution of being unable to then fill other positions. So they end up being redundant as assistant investigators, holding those positions for a period of about 8 years or so, with what I've experienced, and which is totally demoralizing, and most of them are demoralized, and really it doesn't give them any career progression, which then defeats the purpose why we should take them in the very first place, and we end up having to lose them to other organizations. So we try that through the internship program, because then they are given an opportunity within the organization, and thereafter some of them are being absorbed, and we are looking at absorbing them from the internship program. So it balances the force of us having to spend less on assistant investigators and at least have them supported by CCTA through the internship program. Further, Chair, how we would be affected by the 17% cut if it were to take place, we would not be able to realize the structure that has been approved by the Public Protector. I mean, as it is, with the current baseline, we are unable to realize the structure at its entirety. You know, hence the acting CEO has pointed out on some of the injection that we would require in terms of our baseline. But as PP has said, we are trying our best through stakeholder management to try and see how do we enforce other commitments that are within the structure, for example, the issue of accommodation through our relationship with the Department of Justice, etc. Yes, thank you, Honorable Chair. That's it from my side.
Thank you, DPP and PP, Chairperson and honorable members. If I may then also add in terms of what the PP has touched on in terms of our research aspect, we do have a knowledge management and research unit as indicated by the PP. However, we are improvising that at the moment through a block that we've implemented or established, which is being accessed by all investigators, where a number of case laws are being shared in that block. Furthermore, we do have an account with LexisNexis, although it is not sufficient to have all our investigators being able to access the package. We have since engaged the Department of Justice for them to assist us in their own contract where they've indicated that they will avail some licenses to us, although they are currently at a procurement stage. And then in terms of the tabling of the structure and the issues of the cost of the salaries, the tabling that we did was just for the change on the structure. It doesn't change the remuneration of our employees. So the determination that we have since 2002 is still applicable. The only change in our structure that is there is the number of positions, but in terms of conditions of service or the remuneration packages, they remain the same. Hence, such information was not submitted to the committee. However, if it is required, we can submit such information. This was just for the revision of the number of positions within the structure. And indeed, to confirm that our implementation of the structure is within the baseline. Even the current structure, we do have positions that are unfunded. And as they are not funded, we are not filling them. We only fill positions that we are able to fund. And those positions that we normally fill is after a person has vacated or has exited a particular position. So we don't fill any position without the funding that is required. The inputs that we receive from the labor unions in regard to the structure itself, one is the concern on the caseload per investigator, which is something that we've also highlighted in the presentation to say the norm international is your 10 to 25, but we are sitting at more than 3 times the norm internationally, which is 79 cases per investigator. The other thing is the inability to fund the positions. Those were matters that were raised by the labor union, which was the case or still is the case in the structure that is existing even before the revised one. The third aspect of concerns they raised was shortage of tools of trade, which we have addressed by providing at least vehicles in our provincial offices. And at this point, we are providing, we're in a process of procuring laptops instead of our colleagues using desktops so that they can be able to be efficient. They can be able to move around with their gadgets if they need to do inspection in loco in the investigations that they are conducting, but more so for the working from home arrangements that are required in terms of the current situation that we are faced with as a country or also globally. And then in terms of the ratio of the investigator or caseload, the PP has indicated, I also emphasize that we are sitting at 79, but if the structure were to be implemented in its totality, the revised structure would improve our efficiency in that the caseload per investigator will drop to 49 instead of 79, which is still way above the norm internationally. However, it will at least alleviate a pressure from our investigators. That is if the number of cases that we are receiving remains the same, but should they escalate, we may not be able to realize that efficiency or that drop in the caseload per investigator. And then in terms of the demographics, yes, we'll provide that information, which we also usually provide when we submit our annual report. The big chunk of the budget being at COE or at salaries, this actually is as a result of the previous year's baseline reduction by National Treasury. Because when baseline is being reduced, you can in no way reduce your COE. The people that you have employed, they must still remain, they must be paid their salaries. So the only option we're left with was to cut on the goods and services. So it has been, it's a ripple effect of those years where our baseline was cut. I think about 3 or 4 years in a row where our baseline was cut. So unfortunately, we had to cut on goods and services. The PP has indicated to say in some instances where to terminate wellness program services, where to terminate list of vehicles, where to terminate some of the buildings that we're occupying in terms of us saving on the rental. So it's as a result of that. However, Treasury has raised this as a concern, but again, considering the work that we do, our work is labor-based or it's manual-based. Therefore, we've got a lot of people or personnel that actually do the work. We've got very little work that we outsource. Actually, at this point, there's no work that is currently being outsourced to any consultant or to any specialist. We try and do our best to use available services within the public sector, your CSIR and other institutions that are able to assist on expertise that we don't have internally. The DPP has spoken to the 17% budget cut. As it is, we cannot even implement the structure even if that 17% is not cut. Although we have not yet received a response from National Treasury whether they are going ahead with the 17% or not. Again, just to emphasize on the impact that the structure would have, it would also assist us if we're to be able to fill the other positions that are currently vacant, of which the PP indicated that we will not do that haphazardly, we will not do that without finances, but should we receive that funding, the number of investigators that we need will also assist us in our turnaround times, especially on EMEA investigations, which require us to finalize those cases within 30 days. We are not able to do that at this point in time because of the capacity that we have. And it will also assist us to focus on and be proactive on systematic investigations to improve the public administration. I believe that's that in terms of the questions that were not answered by the PP and the DPP. Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentations. We will schedule a meeting to deliberate and to deal with the approval of the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we will deal with the next item on the agenda. You are released PP and DPP.
Ambali.
Honorable members, the second item is the report of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on Government Notice number R692, published in the Government Gazette number 42916, dated 20 December 2019, Regulations for Judicial Officers in the Lower Courts, amendment made under Section 16 of the Magistrates Act number 90 of 1993, dated 19 June 2020. I think, honorable members, this report was circulated. I think we have read it. Can I get confirmation of that?
Yes, Chair.
So we have read it.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any corrections on the report?
Woman, you heard Ruffin?
Honorable Ruffins?
Yes, Chair, if I can, if we can refer to point 4, there's a ... an ellipsis. So after it says Parliament, and then has an ellipsis, the 3 dots, should they be there or should they be removed?
Christine, but I suppose that they should be removed. Ms. Silkstone?
No, they should be there.
Should be.
They should be there, yes.
Okay. Any other member on this issue? Any further corrections? Is there a mover for the adoption of the report?
I move, Chairperson.
I move.
Moved by Honorable Mofokeng. Any seconder?
Seconder, Chair.
Seconded by Honorable Mohammed. Any counter?
Chair, it's Werner Horn, not a counter, but please note that the DA reserves its position.
The DA reserves its position. Any other reservations? The report
No
has...
further reservation.
Thank you very much. The report has been agreed to. And then we have the second report of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on the notices determining the remuneration of the Public Protector and Commissioners of the South African Human Rights Commission with effect from the 1st of April, dated 19 June 2020. This is a 3-page report. I also assume that members have gone through the report. Can I have confirmation of that? Have we read the report?
Confirmed, Chair.
Honorable Mohammed confirms. I take it honorable members have confirmed the report. Can we do corrections on page 1? Any corrections on page 1? On page 2, on page 3, on page 4. No correction. Is there a mover for the adoption of the report?
I move, Chairperson.
Honorable Mofokeng moves. Any seconder?
Seconded, Chair.
Honorable Ngola seconds. Is there any counter or a reservation?
Yes, Chair, please note the reservation of the DA.
Reservation of the DA. Any other reservations? I take it that the report has been agreed to. Honorable members, can I ask that all other people except members of parliament and the committee section, other members leave and members of parliament and the committee section remain behind? All our guests, except the interpreters, all other guests, can they leave us and we leave with the committee section? I suppose Dr. Twalo would also remain behind.
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Committee Secretary, has everybody left?
Chair, I'm still busy trying to remove them.